And the top page of the People Daily, there's what we begin with this morning. It says House of Blackmail. Could this be what informed the voting pattern on the finance bill of 2024 in its second reading yesterday? The top page there of the People Daily says that Treasury is warning to Parliament of cash cuts and twisted MPs to push the Parliament, the finance bill to another stage, despite countrywide protests by young people. All right. Let's also take a look at what's making headlines on the front page of the Daily Nation. And the front page there says, a youth revolt, as 204 members of parliament voted in favor of the finance bill. Thousands of young Kenyans from across the country joined the protest, demanding that the controversial tax plan be thrown out altogether, no longer calling for amendments to the finance bill of 2024. Now, in studio with us for this conversation, we have a Starehe Member of Parliament, Honorable Amos Mwago. Mheshimiwa, very good morning to you, and thank you for being with us here on New Dawn.
Thank you so much.
It was a long day for members of parliament yesterday, and much of it is making headlines on the dailies this morning. When you take a look at the bottom of the Daily Nation there, it says how your MP voted on the bill. Mheshimiwa, what was your stand on the finance bill yesterday?
My stand on the finance bill was rejecting the finance bill in totality, as it were. And that's why I went ahead and voted no against the finance bill. Yeah. So
your view is to reject it in totality, not in view of amendments?
Yes, I rejected the finance bill in totality because in the process of drafting a bill, there's a very crucial part that you subject the bill to public participation. But seeing the mood in the country and the way people are protesting against this finance bill, it clearly shows you that that particular part of public participation was overlooked. And that's why, procedurally, I didn't think the bill was in the House in the right way. And that is why I was rejecting it in totality, because our bosses out there, the electorate, were complaining that we are not involved in the drafting of the bill. And we can only, as leaders, go as far as listening to our own bosses, who are our voters, and say, we are making a bill that is going to affect you, and your input is very much required in the drafting of the bill. And that's why I said, if you've not talked to the people, let us not even discuss this bill.
Yes. Surprisingly, out of the 349 members of parliament, 28 essentially gave the whole vote a wide berth. What do you make of those who didn't show up altogether?
To be fair, the finance bill comes every other year. It's something that is annual and is very predictable. So by sheer absence of some of the members, really goes to show that some people are undecided about the finance bill. There are people who are being pushed by their party positions, and others felt that they were in a contradicted position because their party might have a certain stand, which with them did not augur well with them, and that's why some of them chose to abstain. And abstinence in this case always chooses to be a favor to the other team.
All right, let's go back then, to what's making headlines on the front page of the People Daily, because then Treasury has warned of big budget cuts. In fact, says a total rejection of the bill would open a 200 billion shilling revenue hole. The front page of the People Daily seems to suggest that Treasury may have twisted members of parliament into making the decision they did, 204 of them voting in favor of this bill. Do you agree?
Yes, I do agree. I do agree there's some element of trying to blackmail the MPs, because if you look at the budget making process, it's not an event, it is a process. It's a process that entails a lot, that requires coordination between the Treasury, the Budget Committee, and the Finance Committee. But it clearly shows you that when these people are trying to draft all this, they are acting like they were not in tandem with what they were doing. And that is why they try to blackmail us by bringing us these threats as we are going to get these cuts for the funding for JSS, the medical interns, our CDF. They were saying they are going to have a cut on it. But all these measures were like the last stroke of a dying horse, because they were trying to bring the measures right inside when we were in Parliament, when the mood was so clear that we were going to vote against the bill. And when they saw that the bill was going to fail, that is when they pulled that card, which even the minority leader argued against it, saying that the CS for Treasury does not have the mandate to address Parliament. And introducing this challenge of saying that they are going to pull funding from all these, I don't know how he came up with those specific areas. And even if you look at the areas, the areas that he said that we are going to deduct funding from, he was trying to elicit public emotion to try to show people how failure to pass this finance bill will affect their livelihoods. But that's not true. In the last finance bill which they passed, which was passed last year, coming to the end of the financial year, they missed the target of over 200 billion in collection of revenues. What did they do? They started cutting capital spending, recurrent spending, and that's what was brought about by the supplementary budget too. So what are you telling Kenyans? What if even if you pass these things and then you don't meet your targets? So this was just one of the ways we are trying to blackmail us as MPs. But I'm very happy that even if some MPs yielded to that pressure, the public was able to see through it and they did not support it. And that's why they said we are not supposed to amend anything, we're supposed to reject. Right. And that's what
and part of the slogan that has been coming up on the Occupy Parliament protests is, does the pressure increase or does it increase? We'll be talking about that in a lot more detail, but we'd like to remind you, as we take a look at us making headlines on the dailies this morning, we're inviting your feedback on this conversation. The hashtag is New Dawn. We have with us 3 members of Parliament in studio. We've been speaking to Starehe Member of Parliament, Honorable Amos Mwago. Also with us is a Soy Member of Parliament, Honorable David Kiplagat, as well as Nairobi Women Representative, Honorable Esther Passaris. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us on the New Dawn this morning. It's a heavy day, you know, for discussing and dissecting the events around the Finance Bill of 2024. We invite you to send your questions, your comments and feedback on the process so far and how they voted on the finance bill as well. Honorable Passaris, a very good morning to you. Now, focus is on us making headlines on the dailies. The front page of the Daily Nation says there are youth revolt. And as thousands of young Kenyans yesterday joined in those protests, demanding for total rejection of the finance bill of 2024, you took a difficult stand because a month ago you came to social media and said that you would vote for the finance bill of 2024. But yesterday you made a huge U-turn and voted no for it.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's not a U-turn. It's, you see, the thing is, what was being tabled for second reading was the finance bill, including everything that we know the public outcry. And for me, the sanitary towels is a no-go. All right, you do not, and food, bread is no-go. We talked about all these things before. We heard it in the public participation for the budgets. So when the finance bill was brought to the House, right, to go for public participation, it included all that. And so when we send it to the third reading, right, when we approve it in the second reading to go to the third reading before the committee of the whole House, it still includes all those texts. So the danger of supporting it at that stage is that with the numbers that Kenya Council government has, it would, if they don't bring the amendments, and even if we bring the amendments, all right, I've got about 3, 4, 5 amendments that I've brought in as well. If we bring in the amendments, one, they might say these amendments have already been catered for by the committee, so we're not going to print them. Number 2, when we come to vote on the floor of the House, those amendments we could lose, and it would pass in its entirety exactly as it is, with all those texts, the motor text, the bread text, the, you know, all the texts that we've been saying, the sanitary text, the eco-levy text on sanitary towels, the, you know, everything will pass. So the thing is, you better just put your stand so that the government knows that, you know what, we're standing with the people, all right? And for me, all these were raised during the public participations as well. So you can't, this is the point where you say no. Now, if the government shows goodwill, and they actually amend all those items, all right, and come up with other ways to raise funds that are not going to affect the mwananchi directly, all right, then the finance bill will have to be supported. Right. Because one, the government cannot operate without money. And you have to understand that, you know, the youth right now, or Kenyans out there, right, they share our numbers online. When I look at all the responses that I'm getting, the messages that I'm getting, one is asking for my M-Pesa. A message comes asking you for your PIN. 2, it's asking for jobs. All right. 3, it's asking for bursaries. 4, it's asking to help release their patients from hospital. All right. You know, it's the social needs that that is oppressing them, that is making them come back and ask. So all of them have come here, reject finance bill, but the next message is, please, I have a sister in school, and we, you know, the bursaries are not helping, or help is not helping, or I need food, or I have a patient stuck in hospital, I need medical. So the thing is, we as a government have to realize that the most important thing for us to factor right now is social inclusion.
All right, I will be coming back to that. We have Soy Member of Parliament, Honorable David Kiplagat, and you, Mheshimiwa, voted in favor of the Finance Bill of 2024. You are among the 204 members of Parliament that the youth who came out yesterday feel betrayed them, quote unquote. But let's begin from where Mheshimiwa Pasaris begins, because the Kenya Kwanza government, after that parliamentary group meeting at State House, had a public press statement and announced several concessions that, you know, would be omitted or edited, so to speak, from the finance bill of 2024. Now, Kenyans came out and said even those concessions are not enough. Now, to find out that even those concessions were not included in the draft of the finance bill being voted for in the second reading raises a lot of concerns. Why was that the situation?
Okay, thank you, Michelle. First, I think the topic of today, 204 MPs abandon Kenyans, is a bit wanting. I don't know how it came to abandoning Kenyans, because you know, running a government is a balancing act, because you have to raise revenue and to support the budget. Right. And if you look at the proposal from the Treasury that I think the Starry Member of Parliament was talking about, how it affects, if at all we don't pass the finance bill, how it affects the budget, the appropriation bill that we are supposed to pass for the 2024-2025. So if you look at those social safety nets that is going to affect, you will feel the pain. So as in government, basically, we are caught between the middle, whereby you have to raise revenue. And what we need to agree as Kenyans, and I'll want to urge the youths, is that we need to run a country. We cannot run our country on debt. Our objective as Kenya Kwanza government is to have a balanced budget in the next 3 years. And we can only achieve that by reducing the debt to GDP ratio, which has been coming down, and we need to appreciate. Right now, we started from around 9%. Right now, we are around in 3 point something %. To do that, you have to take the hard decision, and the hard decision is to raise tax and to raise revenue. And raising revenue, we can only do it through raising taxes. And McHugh, this thing has gone to the finance bill, has gone to for public participation, and we have listened. And I think, to be fair to Mheshimiwa Pasaris, you know, there is the finance bill and there is the report from the finance committee. Right. And the report from the finance committee has captured what we actually enumerated in State House. Those issues that were so painful. You can remember the motor vehicle tax, for example, that is the 2.5%. You can remember the VAT on bread, and so many other issues, including the eco levy, which we said that we can affect those goods that are imported to Kenya, but those goods that are manufactured in Kenya, we can exempt. Because if you realize, the biggest problem that our youth is facing is unemployment. That's a fact. Because I believe if all these youths were engaged somewhere, they could not be having time to be on the streets. So, and the only thing we can try as much as possible as a government is to try to create that impetus for the manufacturing sector to be able to invest in our country and to be able to create enough jobs, because government cannot provide enough jobs at any given moment. Right. So we have to make sure that at least our economic proposals is geared towards creating jobs within Kenya, not for trying to increase
revenue collection. But then so it's a balancing act for the government.
May I finish? So on the issue of the youths that have come out against the finance bill. Okay, it was funny that our numbers were shared. The messages we are getting is that actually they don't even bother what you have amended. They just bother about the word reject finance bill 2024. If you engage, I've tried to engage a few of them. What is the issue? Now that we have done with this, we are done with this, we are done with this. What is the other issue that you feel that it should be looked at? And they just say reject finance bill and use the other one we had passed in 2023. So the messaging among our youth is that there is a negative messaging that is coming from the civil society, that they don't even care to elaborate to the youth on why we are doing this, what amendments we have been able to do, and why as a country we need to run our own economy. We cannot depend on donors daily. So we need to reduce the debt, we need to run a country, and we need to support those sectors that are very important. If you look at the last 1 month where the interns, the teachers were in the streets, the medical interns were in the streets, and all those things have been factored in the budget. And the only way they can be factored in the budget is to increase our revenue. And for us to increase our revenue, we have to have the finance bill that introduces. May I finish? Introduces other measures of taxes. So when you say that we reject, it means that we also reject the employment of intern teachers, which is around 46,000. We also reject the employment of medical interns. Let us be fair and also may I finish?
It's a very I've given you time. It's a tough balancing act for the government when it comes to running the country. You must raise revenue to run the country, but you must balance the needs, the growth, and the development of the people that you govern, the citizens that you govern. And so Kenyans have come out and made their stand. I'd like to hear from Honorable Margo, because Honorable Pasaris raises an honest concern. Yes, the report of the committee does capture the concessions that were done by the Kenya Kwanza government, but there's that one concern. First of all, that this is being done to divert Kenyans from the details, the devil in the details of the finance bill, number one. And second, where is the goodwill when these concessions were not reflected in the second reading of the finance bill?
Maybe just to
thank you, because I think
I'll give you time.
There's a misnomer that
you've been given your chance to talk.
I'm saying on the issue of why it was not reflected in the second reading. You all know very well. Only amendments that is done by but that's been proposed by the committee will be done in the committee of the whole house. So you don't expect that those amendments will be in the second reading. I think that is also misleading.
And so when you voted yes, you were voting
so
for the finance bill as yes?
We vote yes. Then when we go on Tuesday, we shall go to the committee of the whole house, and those amendments that have been done by the committee by the finance committee will now be introduced for issue, because there we shall be passing clause by clause, and those amendments will be captured. And that is why, and that is how we do all the bills. This is not a very unique bill. It is just a bill like any other bill.
Thank you, Michelle, because I really want to put my voice into what my colleague has said. First and foremost, as he has admitted that they went to State House and there were those concessions when they made at a PG. It is known to all Kenyans that at State House is not where laws are made. Laws are made in Parliament. So any concessions that were made outside Parliament cannot purport to be amending the law. The second thing, it is lazy for us as Kenyans to retire our minds and decide that and say that on live TV that the only way we can raise revenue is through taxing our people. That is not how major economies operate. That is not where we are targeting to go as a middle income country is going. The budget always has an element of A in A, appropriations in aid, where all these corporations in government are supposed to make profits and generate money and revenue for our country. The coffee sector, the tea sector, the tourism sector, like we used to know them, they used to be the major contributors to revenue for our budget. But now we've tried to make sure that the only source we can raise money is through taxing our people. The second thing, we cannot come here and insult the intelligence of our people who are demonstrating in the streets by saying that they don't understand the finance bill. You cannot raise such a question, because I've listened to some of them and someone was putting it so clear. Why are we being rushed to pass another finance bill, whereas we've not been told the effects and productivity of the last finance bill of 2023-2024? Then I want to fault all those MPs who supported the bill, because it really shows that the understanding about lawmaking is wanting. Why do I say so? How can we pass a bill? We were not discussing the report. We were discussing the finance bill as it was. And they passed it without even these amendments coming into play. And then there's no way you can tell us to always be putting the cart before the horse. Why should we pass the finance bill and bring the amendments later when as we have time, we have a chance to take it back to the people and amend it, bring it as amended? Then we'll amend what we don't see, what we don't deem to be right for us. What was the hurry in passing the finance bill? Why not take it back to the people? Then there was a clear indication that there's a step that was bypassed. In what I was saying, the due public participation. When you see Kenyans on the street, it shows you they were not involved in the drafting of the bill. And it only shows you that the legal requirement for every bill to undergo public participation, that's something that was not done. And then you cannot go to State House where all of you as MPs from one coalition decide to do a public participation for the people and come say, we've listened to the people, they've said this is what we should remove, this is what we should remove. And you see it backfired on them because even after they brought it back and said there were these proposals to amend, the Kenyans said no, we are not talking about amendments, we are saying you reject it. We are not talking about editing it. So when you say now you are going to push it down the throat of Kenyans without considering that the Kenyans were on the street, saying no, we don't need it to be done the way you've done it, purporting to have done it on our behalf. No, we have a voice to be heard to have it the way it should be.
Right. Pasaris, the concern then, and Honorable Kiplagat raises this, youth now want the bill rejected, not amended. What are your thoughts on this?
I think we have a Maraga ruling on this that might cause a problem. But for me, I think it's important for us to we need to raise money. All right, sure. All right, but we have the finance bill of 2023, which we didn't even meet the targets. Okay, we're short of the targets of the finance bill of 2023. So why don't we just adopt that? All right, and look at one or two things that we can add, because obviously we didn't meet the targets because certain things that we planned didn't work. All right, so come up with 2 or 3 taxes, or enhance 2 or 3 taxes that are done well. All right, like let's say if the fuel levy, for instance, gave you more money, right? You take it up by 0.5%, something insignificant, that will give you the money, all right, but not hurt the Kenyans. But you see, the thing is, when I say that, I know that we're going to have to hurt as a country. And when I hear the youth talking, they say, you know what, we need a debt audit. We need a debt audit. The thing is, some of the people that we owe money, like with the big funders like IMF and World Bank, one thing I can be sure is that they will not fund anything where they smell corruption. So we can be sure that those monies have come to do the right thing. But if they haven't, the only problem we have there is the fact that the interest rates are very high. IMF and World Bank have lost their mandate. Their mandate as institutions were to basically help developing countries come up. But when it comes to taxes, and our president has been going around and saying this, because they consider us bad debtors, right, they actually charge us more. What the US would pay to borrow money from big institutions like this is so much less than what we would pay. So, basically they're strangling Africa, and that's why Africa needs its own revival.
And is it just the interest rates or also the extra conditions?
It's the interest rates. It's the,
many say the budget risks of IMF.
No, the conditions come when we default. Look at Ghana. I mean, right now Kenya, we're at about almost 70% of GDP. Ghana is over 90% of GDP. Why? Because they had to reorganize everything. And when they reorganized their internal debt to meet the requirements of the IMF and the World Bank, what it meant is that all the investors internally who had treasury bonds and the banks that had borrowed, lent to the government, all of them were strangled. And that's, again, the entire economy is being strangled. I saw what happened with Greece with the austerity measures. Greece was lucky in that the European Union wanted to make sure that Greece doesn't fail, because then the euro would come down. So they all backed Greece, the austerity measures for Greece. And Greece is doing well today. But the thing is, with Kenya, we need an Africa solution to this. And for me, I think all the African states, we've been talking about loss and damage, all right? Some of the monies that we're spending right now is the damages of drought, the damages of floods, all right? And the impact it has on the citizens, all right? So climate change and the impact on the citizens. So even in health, we're having a huge impact on health because of climate change. We are actually trying to get our citizens to give us this money, when in actual fact, it's the West that should actually find a way to give us loss and damage for debt. We should have those negotiations so that we can reduce our debt. Because right now, by the way, we are refinancing debt. When you look at Eurobond, we refinance debt, but we're paying our interest and penalties. And I really commend the president for actually making sure we didn't default on Eurobond, because that means we're more credible for debt. So the question is, do we want to go into more debt so that we can actually continue to grow our economy? Because you know what, we're stagnant. We will be completely stagnant. We will not be able to grow. And the fact is, before we can get the private sector investors to come in and invest in this country, we need to really lower our cost of energy.
All right. We must take a break.
Energy is too expensive in this country.
We must take a break. It's a conversation we'll have in a lot more detail when we come back at the top of the hour. We delve deep into the intrigue surrounding the events of the Finance Bill 2024, the voting of the second reading, and the aftermath of that Occupy Parliament protests yesterday. What is next? Is the country stunned by the rise of the youth revolt, which seems to have come out of nowhere, but now looks like it could go anywhere? The hashtag is New Dawn. Do speak to us.